Hi, guys. Welcome back to Survived by Loss, a podcast providing a voice in the dark where we hear stories about erasing the gray and ending cycles. I'm Haley, and I will be your host. If you made it through the trailer, you'll know from now on this podcast will be one giant trigger warning. Before we dive into today's episode, I would like to say the following content may contain sensitive topics or discussions that could potentially evoke strong emotional responses or discomfort. I encourage you to prioritize your mental health and proceed with caution. If you find yourself feeling distressed at any time, please remember that it's okay to pause or stop listening. Your well-being is incredibly important to me. Remember, you're not alone and support is available. In this podcast, we will talk about loss and every single kind. You'll hear my personal stories, as well as people that I know and love, and hopefully one day this will inspire you to talk about something you have lost with all of us. My goal for this is to be a safe space to share, a place to let go, to find people to add to your list so you know you're not alone in your time of healing. I feel like today's episode is super special. It's very long. I will warn you in advance. This one is with Chanel. And if you haven't listened to the last episode with me and Chanel, you should definitely go back and listen because it will just help things kind of make sense for this round. I'm not sure in what order this one will come out in, but as of right now, Chanel's video is going to be the first actual video, which is so exciting. I'm so excited to get to see her cute face. I will say that in the video version that will be on YouTube, it's going to be a little bit longer. Not so many cuts or edits because I didn't want the video to be super choppy. Obviously, there is some editing. It's going to have to happen. But overall, I think it'll be fun to kind of just see us work through the conversation and how it goes. When you listen to this episode on Apple Podcast or any of the other podcasting platforms, it will be probably quite a bit shorter and may not include everything we talked about on the YouTube video. So if you're wanting to see basically everything we talked about, you're more than welcome to go to YouTube. It's just under Survived by Loss. It'll be a YouTube channel. You can look for the video and we'll be there. I'm recording this after the fact, so the topics are fun. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Obviously, we run over and, kind of touch on everything as far as Chanel being in Belize, her coming back, that it's been 10 months basically since we've talked about, the last podcast episode. But yeah, I'm really excited. We do touch on her 911 call, and I just want to say, now, I'm not an expert. I've been a 911 dispatcher for less than 2 years, and I obviously don't know everything. Every city, state is going to have different policies and procedures, so please don't take what I said or my opinion as like the gospel because it quite literally is just my opinion based on what I have learned working at 2 different agencies now. And honestly, these 2 different agencies are very different. So I could only imagine that Las Vegas would be different as well. Anyways, I'm going to ramble and talk for days. I hope you enjoy this episode. And yeah, we have some really exciting things coming. I have Jordan Martinez and a couple other people lined up. So we'll get some of those going, which will be super exciting. But yeah, I'm going to look different. So I hope you're ready for the YouTube version. And if you're listening, Chanel's always great. So, before I forget, I'm still learning with the audio levels. I think when I was so I apologize in advance, but we'll get it figured out eventually. Because why would I have it together? Okay, see you in a minute. Where do you want to start? Where's your head at? What are you thinking?
I don't know. You're the leader.
I'm here for moral support. Just kidding. I'm trying to think of like exactly where we left off. There was a question in the last podcast that I wanted to ask you this time. And we all know I'm not on top of things ever. And I can't remember what it was. But last time we talked, my gosh, literally in March. I'm trying to think. Okay, so last time we talked, you were going to go to Belize. You did
Hmm.
go.
I did go.
Not only did you go, you came back. And now it's been March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Shit, it's almost been 10 months. Yeah, almost 10 months. It's been 9 months. So you went to Belize, you came back, you've been living life, you're doing all the things. You met a boy, you guys have traveled. You've done a lot in 10 months. Like a lot.
A lot, a lot.
You have to tell us about Belize because you said you were going to. Tell us how that worked. Like, how did you get there? Did you walk? Um, like the process, and then like your accommodations, because I got to see it and your pictures and stuff that you posted, but obviously people here that didn't follow you when you told them to probably didn't see either. So we can start with Belize if you want.
Yeah. Belize was beautiful. I ended up going to Belize because Haley was like, "Hey, have you ever looked at Belize?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." So then I started looking into it. And then ultimately, I booked my airplane ticket and then my Airbnb for the 2 weeks. And my Airbnb happened to be in some poor village in Sardinia. And when I got there, the woman that ran the farm, like she took care of it, she was a single mom with a 12-year-old boy. So I happened to hang out with a 12-year-old boy while I was there. And his mom was amazing. They showed me all around the village and took me to their church and stuff and their grocery store. She had people pray for me. We went kayaking and I forgot what else we did. Oh, we went to like this bird sanctuary thing. I did a 3 day snorkeling trip while I was there too, which was beautiful. So I went snorkeling, which was a little scary, but it was fun. I could see through the water, so it helped. Um, while I was at the village, so the village had on the property, it was like a farm. So then it had like 4 or 5 different um, little shack things you could rent for a little bit. So there was some unique people that were staying there. There was this older guy who was from New York, I believe, and he had a truck there, so he would give me rides and stuff, places. He took me and that woman's child out. Like we went and ate. We went to the bird sanctuary thing. We went hiking somewhere. I forgot. But he was just like a grandpa. It was cool. And then and then there was this couple there who was identical to two of my best friends that I have. It was them just as like an older couple. So it was cool to hang out with like older version of my best friends currently. And coincidentally her daughter had passed away on their living room floor, but her daughter is alive still. It was like a brief passing on the floor. But during that, a little bit after when the daughter, woke up and whatnot, she told her mom, like, "Hey, I could see you guys freaking out." And she's like, "I don't understand why you were freaking out because I was okay." So it's just
Hmm.
very random that I'm just in a random country and I meet this random woman and she randomly tells me the story about her and her daughter. And her daughter is why she went on that trip because she almost didn't go on that trip because her daughter
Mm.
has had like a lot of neural problems. I'm gonna shorten the word because I
Neurological,
can't
yeah.
say. Yeah, thanks. Um, so she had a doctor's appointment for surgery coming up. So the mom was like, "I don't want to go because I don't want to miss this appointment." And her daughter was like, "If you don't go to this, I'm going to be very mad at you. You guys need to go on this trip." So she did. I'm glad she did. Yeah, it was beautiful. I went to their property because they are building a house there, and we went and swam in their front yard, I guess. So their house is facing the ocean, so it's their front the front yard. We were swimming. Food was amazing. Everybody I just met was great. It was just, yeah, it was just beautiful. The weather was great. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't cold. So I got the tan. Um, yeah, it was just a great experience just being by myself in this unknown place.
Was it humid?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
It was very humid. Fans
Mm-mm.
everywhere. Fans in all the restaurants. Fans in the bedroom. If there was a fan by you, it was great.
I feel like having a fan would be like a natural swamp cooler though, because like you're sweaty, right? I'm sure because it's humid. And then you have the fan and it makes it cooler. And it's like, it's probably nice.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Was it because you mentioned that the woman that you were like hanging out with or got close with while you were there had a 12-year-old son? Was that like weird being so close with the events that kind of took you there? Was that hard to be around him?
It wasn't hard to be around him because he was a great kid. It was just random. I was like, I would end up here. I would
You
end
would.
up with a single mom with her child. Like, just, it was just a flip of how my life has been to just then go travel. And then that's just where I end up is what my life has been.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the older, like grandpa guy. And for those who may not have listened to Chanel's last podcast with me, Chanel and I have some like really odd connections. Um, for example, one that to this day always blows my mind is her grandpa and my dad passed the same day, probably almost the exact same time, if we're being honest. Um, and when you said that there was like that grandpa guy, the first person I thought of was Dave. And I was like, what are the odds that you have a 12-year-old like Adrian and then you have grandpa like Dave? Like, because Dave would do that. He would drive you around if you needed it. He would do whatever you needed. You want, what did he make? That like hamburger patty with gravy. You want that? He'll make it for you. Like he was just awesome. So I wondered about the grandpa guy too.
Yeah, the grandpa, he was a little odd, but he was just grandpa, you know? It was
I mean, Dave was
cool.
a little odd too. So it's the same.
Yeah, but he was cool. He was just traveling. He was gone from New York for probably like 3 months at that time. He just drove from New York and just kept driving, and then he was in Belize.
So you walked to Belize. He drove to Belize. Got
Yeah.
it. I love that. So Belize was good. You were there for 2 weeks. You got to do
Yeah.
all the things. I know. Um, Also, for people who don't know Chanel or don't follow her, Chanel likes to post push-up videos. Just doing like push-ups, random places, and I say random because you're always trying to get somebody to do it with you, and then they do, and you guys just literally laugh and smile the whole time, and it makes me laugh and smile even though I don't do push-ups, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing, you're doing push-ups. Um, but I remember you when you were on the boat and you did them with the guys on the boat, and I was like, yeah, get them to do it in another country. I'm so proud.
Because I was sitting on the boat and I was just like, I wonder if I could do push ups on a moving boat because it was pretty, you know, you could do it.
Yeah, you were rocking and rolling
Doable.
on a boat with the waves. I
Yeah.
could only imagine. I don't even like doing push-ups on steady ground. So, doing them on a boat, good for you, man.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you got back from Belize. You were there 2 weeks. Were you ready to come back, or would you have stayed longer? It's been a minute now since you've went.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about it. I mean, I absolutely could have stayed there longer for sure. I had friends.
You weren't like coming back like, oh, I really wish I would have stayed for like 5 more days or something. You just kind of were. It is what it is, and the time that you there the time that you were there is how long you were supposed to be there, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like everything happens how it's supposed to sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Belize. You went to Belize, you walked to Belize, you walked back. We had a great time. We love that. You met some awesome people, got to do all sorts of different things. Um, since it's been so long, almost 10 months now, what has like happened since? How are you feeling? I know before we started recording, I asked you if you were happy, and you said you still have some sad days, which is normal, unfortunately. Those are always going to be there. But what has been some like positives and negatives, or big things, small things, happy, sad, good, bad? What's been going on?
Really just learning how to take my new free time and utilize that positively. So I'm just taking the time to learn things instead of just scrolling on Instagram for 5 hours during the day. Those 5 hours, I am doing a nutrition course. I bought a lot of flashcards. I'm looking at flashcards. I'm learning two languages, Spanish and Russian. Um,
Why Russian?
learning. Adrian was obsessed with it for some reason.
Hmm, makes sense.
So I just decided to check it out, and I'm pretty good at it. And then there's a guy at work who speaks Russian, so he helps me with it
Mm.
too. So that helps.
It's always good when somebody else knows the language and you can be around them and like talk to them and they can give you some feedback. That's nice.
hmm And when people are speaking Russian, I can pick up on a few of the words now, which is kind of cool because I'm like, oh, I'm learning.
You're like, I get it. I can,
it's
we're going to have a whole conversation.
it's staying in here. Um, what else? Learning how to play with food in a more clean way because I've always had a relatively clean lifestyle for the most part, but I have really cut out fast food and a lot of foods that have chemicals in it. I'm just being super, super cautious on all of the foods that I do eat and ingest. I'm really trying to figure out how I can take and eat clean food when I'm at baby showers or birthday parties or when I'm traveling places for 2 or 3, 4 days at a time. Um, that's something I'm trying to do because the chemicals in food is literally everywhere. It's more common than not. And people like to say foods are weird when there's no chemicals in it. So just trying to figure that one out
Yeah,
for me.
again, if you followed Chanel on Instagram or something, you would see she's always doing something with food. And that's been something that's been a little bit, not like, I wouldn't say more recent, because like you said, it's something that you've always done, is eaten pretty clean, and you're creative and you try stuff, which is awesome. But definitely recently you've gotten more curious, I guess would be a good word. And just focusing on healing yourself inside out. And it's been really neat to like see all the different colors you do, because I have been a little bit of the opposite. Like, I'm eating better, but I've been eating, don't come for me, everybody, but I've been eating a lot of like meat in general, like chicken, and just super basic vegetables, because I'm just not hungry right now. And so when I see your stuff and you've got 50 different things on a plate, I'm like, that's overwhelming, but beautiful. And I bet it tastes good. But also, I could eat chicken and celery and be fine.
Me too. I love very, very simple too. But I have realized within the week, if you want to be your healthiest per se, um, you need to have 20 to 30 different fruits and vegetables in your diet every single week. So, you know those superfood powders? That's what this is.
Yeah,
It's literally what that is. But it's not a powder that I'm buying at the store. I'm just making it myself.
right. And that's a good point too, is like, even when you buy stuff, like we were talking about it right before we started recording, how you don't know what's in things. Like, you taught me just 5 minutes ago that natural flavor is doesn't necessarily mean it's some sort of natural flavoring. It could be 50 different chemicals labeled as one thing, and then that's just in everything. but you don't know what things are unless you make it yourself, which you're doing. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, just slowly learning how to make it all more like teas. I'm learning how to make it with the actual different leaves and putting it all together instead of buying just the bags. Yeah,
Which is
just
awesome.
and then figuring out what the chemicals are because some of the chemical names aren't bad names. You just have to Google them and see what are they doing to your body, you know,
Hmm.
because then that's why we're not sleeping, and that's why our periods are weird, or our headaches, or why we're sneezing today, or why we're gassy. Like sometimes I'm so gassy I just wish it would go in my wallet for some gas money, but it's in my belly instead. So
How rude of your body. Tell your body to get it together. One thing I remember, my dad pointed it out one time and I was like, there has to be some correlation. But I will rub my nose a lot, like heavy, like intense. And I realized it's after like eating certain foods. Like when I did carnivore diet and I was only eating um like red meat, chicken, eggs, butter, I wasn't breaking out. I didn't have like the chicken skin on my arms. I was sleeping really well. I was not hungry. I always felt like full and satiated. And my nose didn't itch and my skin wasn't flaky. And then when I kind of fell off of that, that was in Utah. Um, I started like itching again and like my skin felt like shit and I was breaking out and I started itching my nose really bad and I was like, okay, it's something. I don't know what it is, but it's something. So
the
that's
chemicals.
interesting. I would
It's
love
the
some gas
chemicals
money
in the
too, though.
processed foods.
Oh, yeah, it's wild what
Hmm.
is in things nowadays. It's crazy. Even vegetables, like fresh vegetables that you can buy, like you don't know what's on them or what they put on it for like pest control and like growth stuff. Like I feel like we're not safe at all.
No. One day I'll have my own garden.
When you move,
But I definitely do a whole big bath for all my fruits and veggies as soon as I come home from the
yeah,
store. And then I just put them all away. So then I just freely pick.
which is smart, super
Hmm.
smart. Now that we talked about it, my nose is super itchy. It's gonna be itchy for like the next 20 minutes. I'm gonna have to try to not scratch it.
Or is it the food you just ate?
Mm, I don't know. I think I'm focused on it. I'm focused. I also feel like I might have like a little bit of congestion, so my nose feels a little snotty.
Mm.
If you catch my drift. Um, but yeah.
I
Okay,
can show
what
you a
else?
honey to make.
Honey.
Yeah. After this, I'll show you to make a honey. And you just drink it
Okay,
every day. Put
I
it in
love
tea
honey.
or just take a teaspoon.
A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. I can't. Literally can't. Okay. So you're eating food, you're doing good, you're being everything I want to be in life.
You're becoming that. You are being everything in life.
No, I just want to be as cool as
Yes.
you. What else? Tell me everything. Tell me everything. Hurry.
Um, Holidays are interesting
Yeah.
because a person who's always been with me is no longer with me.
And this was
Um,
your first Christmas, Thanksgiving,
Birthday, his
birthday,
birthday, Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah, so
There's
this
been
is
a
a
few.
first for lots.
There's been a few, yeah. It's weird. Um, definitely weird. But I am able to make those days still filled with love instead of me hiding and being sad.
That's good.
And if I am sad around the people, I just cry. I don't care who's around. I don't care who sees me. I'm sad. So,
And you're allowed to be.
yeah, absolutely. So I
My
am
mom
pro
always
cry
says,
anywhere.
yeah, I'm not pro cry. I'm not a crier. Here's the thing. I am a crier, but I don't like to cry. I like to shut it down. But my mom always says that crying cools your brain just gives me a headache. But
Depends
I
on how
think,
you cry. If you're crying too hard, you'll get a headache.
yeah, I
If
think
you're
it's because
just
I like,
if yeah, if you just let it flow gently and feel it gently, it's a release and it'll cool down your brain instead of heating up your brain and giving you a headache and stuff. Because you can absolutely cry really hard where you like hyperventilate, but the goal is to
yeah.
release the feeling of whatever it is.
And I think it's just because like I don't cry.
Yep, it
And
builds up.
then it gets to that point where I'm like, ah, shit, here it goes. Here it goes. You're going to have a headache for 4 days. And in an episode or two or six, who knows? Because I don't know my timeline. Before this, I do talk about that.
Sometime
My
that way.
sometime in the past, before you hear this one, even though this is before that one, yeah, it's crying's hard. I love that you can cry and not die like I do, because oof,
I think I
it's
had
rough.
to. I had to sink or swim with that one
Yeah.
because I was just crying everywhere. So
Well, and it's
didn't have a choice.
valid. It's so valid. I feel like people either like are criers or they're not. And I feel like before you were not a huge crier.
No, not a huge cry. I definitely cried ever since I got pregnant. I cried more,
Hmm.
but then it was his first attempt when I just had so much PTSD. I had to just cry. I was just walking around crying. So I
Yeah.
just had to accept it or figure out how to hide it. And I was like, well, we're just going to accept it because I just don't know how to not cry. So,
So for do you feel like you have the emotional capacity to maybe briefly summarize what happened prior to this episode, just so that if somebody's popping up and they haven't listened to anything before this, do you want to say what happened? Do you want me to say what happened? What is your heart feeling?
I think you can summarize it.
Okay. I got this. So, quick history lesson. Chanel and I are besties. We're friends turned family. Chanel has been my friend for a very long time. And as I mentioned earlier, a few minutes ago, we've had some like really interesting connections over the years. And what brought Chanel on this with me in March most recently is her son ultimately decided that he was going to end his life early. Now, I feel like at the end of the day, and you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, his passing was different. There wasn't necessarily, I feel like there wasn't like signs. You know what I mean? Like most people, I feel like when you look back, you're like, oh, definitely. Like my dad, for just for an example, looking back, I'm like, yeah, no, it makes sense why he did what he did. But I really feel like in a lot of ways, Adrian didn't have that. Yes, he had that first attempt, but I feel like he was, and this is just my opinion, I feel like he was almost more curious about the act and not necessarily wanting his life to end. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So Chanel lost Adrian beginning of March, and she's kind of just been on a journey to figure out what life is with losing a part of you, like a part of something that you grew and nurtured and got to become friends with and put everything possible into. And that's kind of, where she's at now. I think there's definitely probably a better way I can summarize it, and don't mind my nervous laugh. That's just exactly what it is. But Adrian was a super cool kid, very smart, very kind. He was just, and he was so neat. He knew, I feel like, you know how you meet those people and they just have random facts that they just know, and you're like, I don't know why you need to know that, but it's cool that you know it. And I learned something. I feel like he was that, just like a walking that. he just knew a lot about a lot of random things, and it was neat. And it was cool watching him grow up over the years because, I've known you and him for such a long time, I feel like. But yeah, now we're kind of just to a point where we're 10 months in, and I say we, but you. I say we because I love you, but you are 10 months in and you're living life and you're trying to figure things out, and you were brave and courageous and absolutely wild and went to Belize because you went to Belize in April, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not long after you went to Belize and you met this cool family with some interesting coincidences as well. Meeting the people who you felt like were just older versions of your friends, and then, hanging out with a 12-year-old and getting to do so many different things. And you had some good food there too. You guys were cooking and stuff together too, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's just been some amazing growth. And like looking at you today, I know you're sad. I know you have sad days because for Jason, I'm what, 16 years in, and I still wake up some days and I'm like, this sucks and I'm sad, and that's okay. But what I love is even in March, being so soon after it happened, that you still had like that little bit of light in you. And I feel like it's really easy to lose and really easy to let go of and really easy to extinguish yourself, and not even on purpose, maybe just because sadness sucks and it hurts. But you right here now, still, your light is so bright. And I love that because you deserve to have the brightest light ever in life. And I am just thankful that you're here. And I'm thankful I get to be a part of your life. And I'm thankful that you trust me enough for me to be a part of your life. And I'm rambling, but you're really just super neat. And I love you. And I wish I was as cool as you. Maybe one day.
You are as cool as me.
But that's my roundabout summary of Chanel in life, and there's so many other things. So if you haven't listened to the first one of Chanel and I, you should go back and listen because Chanel's wise beyond her years, which is she's incredible and she knows that, hopefully. And if she doesn't, I'll remind you every day. And yeah, she's just doing all the things. And I've never had a kid, obviously. But all I know is if something happened to Lux, I don't know that I could pull it together as well as you have. That's for damn sure. I will be a mess. I'll be a mess.
I had 6 months of the in between from the first incident to the actual incident to prepare me for the finding because I knew the way he tried the first time, I was like, there's just no way that was the only time. Like, I just knew somewhere inside me, like, any day, I was hoping it would be years down the road. Like when he
Yeah.
was 50 or 60 or 70, you've lived your life. Now you're over it. It's okay. But it was 6 months later. So I definitely prepared myself to find him. I just didn't prepare myself for anything after because everybody asks you if you have children everywhere you
Mm-hmm.
go. So that's like always a thing. And I work with so many different people. I work with about 1,000 people probably. And it's kind of hard to navigate that sometimes because you'll be in the middle of work and Joe Schmo comes up and they're like, hey, how's Adrian? And I'm like, or they have found out and they haven't seen me since then. And then they come up to me crying, hey, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 blah. So, like, sometimes at work, it's definitely more difficult because it's just random. I don't know how to prepare for that because it's like at that instant. I definitely, now that it's been a while, I can see some of the signs of mental illness. I'm not sure exactly what because I don't have him to talk to, but I have ideas. He was like 8 or 7, and he told me he had bad thoughts in his brain And I just took that as like we all do, like especially when we're angry. I did not dive into it, and I really should have dived more into that because then I would have been able to see what those bad thoughts were. I brushed it off as like everybody does. There are just, yeah, just some things that he did like at my mom's house cuz he was stuck there during the shutdown, and I think that was really bad for him. He Cuz my mom was just not healthy to be around, to be honest. So for him to be around her 24/7, especially while she's sick, I don't think it was a good mix for him up here too. But in his bed, there was literally like 200 stab holes in the mattress.
Yeah.
So you don't just do that. So I know there's definitely some anger things in there. He just never showed those to me. For me, he was always strong and put together and didn't have an attitude and just helped me with whatever I needed help with. I asked him to do schoolwork, he would do it. Can you put the dishes away? Yes, mom, I'll do it. Hey, I need help with the groceries. Yep, got you. Like he was, I don't want to say perfect, but he was almost perfect for me. Yeah, he was a kid at times, but for the most part, he was just really good. And I just think it was because he knew I was by myself and he didn't want to be a burden, I guess is the best way for me to say that. But which is where I think he hid things from me, is because he didn't want to be broken or a burden or any of those things, which is the opposite. If you hide things, you can't get help. So him hiding whatever he was hiding ultimately led him to do what he was going to do. And I honestly feel like he was just going to do something really bad, probably to me, and it not be because he hated me. It's just because of what was happening in here. For the past 2 years, maybe before that, he didn't hug me much. It was very random when he would say I love you back. Those type of emotions he definitely like hid down. When he came out of the psych ward, he definitely hugged me for like 10 minutes. He was really excited to be out of that place. That place was not good. Yeah, so there are definitely some things that I look back at now and I'm like,
Well, and we've talked about
interesting.
it a little bit too, like as far as, you know, dad's mental history and family's mental history, but also some things that you've noticed between the last time and the time that ultimately, unfortunately, took him. But just like the pacing at night, that's one thing that, I feel like was similar with my dad. He would pace all night. He hardly slept and he would be exhausted, but he would be up at the most random times pacing
Mm-hmm.
literally all night. And that's something that you kind of saw in Adrian too. But even then I feel like it doesn't always click. Like you can think you know what's happening and maybe have a solution or something, but it's so hard until you can look back. You know what I mean? And that I feel like it's awful to say that, but
It's true.
um Adrian was did have some like little things here and there. Like you said, you kind of got worried that maybe one day he could possibly hurt you. I remember we talked about it once, but like even when I lived with you guys, there were just some like weird little things that would happen, and not like bad or creepy or um uncomfortable, but looking back I'm like, okay, I could see why he had trouble sleeping and would pace all night, or I had saw him do it or stuff like that. But I feel like I just was he's a kid, like that's what they do. They're going through hormones and they're figuring out their life, and maybe he was eating something that didn't work for his body, or he wasn't like out with bad kids, or he didn't have bad influences necessarily, because it was you and Clint and Dave and just like wholesome people. So it is interesting for sure, the events that happened. And it's unfortunate because I think he could have done some pretty amazing things, whether it been like science or, just cool stuff down the road for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He was a little genius.
He was so smart.
Mm-hmm.
And the I remember when you told me, just me stuttering over here, but the first time you told me about his bed too at your mom's house, and I was like, he doesn't strike me as that kid. He never has.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that was a little bit of a shock value too. I was like, I can't believe he did that because he doesn't strike me as a kid that would do that. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Because it was hidden. That's why.
Yeah.
He didn't portray those characteristics, especially around me. He just
Yeah.
didn't.
And also, I hope you don't beat yourself up either, because I know that you said when he was younger, he had mentioned that he had some thoughts, and I really hope you don't blame yourself or think that you should have done anything different, because it's so hard, one, to know the difference in a general term of like concern, and you're just growing and learning, and maybe you're hearing and seeing things and whatever, and then the actual concern, because like an adult could literally sit down and be like, hey, I have these feelings sometimes, or these thoughts, and you might just be like, oh yeah, I've had those before, but you don't know the severity of them, even if they can tell you, you know what I mean? Like, I could look you in the eyes and be like, sometimes I think about squishing a fly. I don't know, whatever those thoughts are. I can't think of anything. But like menacingly, like in an evil way. I just want to squish all the flies in the whole entire world because they're flies and they're gross or whatever. But like, you don't, that could turn into I become a serial killer. I don't know. Just, shock factor, the wow value. But you don't you don't know. You never truly know until something happens, and you're a good mom. You really are. And you did everything you could. And I hope you know always, like in your heart, that you're enough and you did enough. And sometimes you can't save people, and that's unfortunate. But just because you couldn't save them doesn't mean that your purpose with them and their purpose with you wasn't fulfilled. Because
Correct.
that's something I struggle with. Like with Dad and Jay, I'm like, well, I wish I could have done this different. But at the end of the day, you will always be enough, even when you don't feel like it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, because ultimately their life and our life ending or starting literally has nothing to do with anybody else in this whole entire world. We
Mm-hmm.
just like to put value on other people's lives more than ourselves for some reason. Like you
Yep.
stated earlier, if anything happens to Lux, we better check on you. Which you are putting more value on her life than you are your life.
Preach.
I'll let that sink
But
in for a little bit.
it's easier to focus on other people. Shocker, but I did talk about this in an episode that's coming out before this. How I feel like it's easier to focus on other people and to fill other people's cups and pour everything you have into somebody else than yourself. And maybe that's just for me. Maybe that's not something that everybody feels, but I feel like it's always easier and more justified for me to fix others because it's easier. It's hard to work on yourself. It's hard to focus on yourself. And again, that could just be a me thing, but I'm sure there's other people that feel that way. But I would pour everything I had into somebody else if that meant that their life would be better. But I have trouble doing that for me. I don't know if you're like that.
Um, I feel like I used to be more so. I feel like now I am learning how to do things for me because I have to learn who I am because I've been a parent for 12 years. So I'm like, well, what do I do without a kid? I don't know. So now I'm just learning what do I do without a kid? And I'm like, well, I'll just learn a lot of things. So I'm just learning a lot of things because I got the time to do it. I go in nature a lot. Nature is very great in healing. But yeah, it is easier to put the attention on other people. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's a society thing. It goes with the value. onto other people over yourself for some reason. And I'm not sure why we do that, but we do. It's taught somewhere. We learn it somewhere, somehow. I'm trying to figure that out too. But yeah, just learning how to just do more for me and take care of me and what that means, right? For me, that means cooking all of my meals. And, sometimes I don't cook them all, but it's 2024, almost 2025. So there's a lots of food everywhere, and I really love food. So
You have
just trying
always
to
been a
find
foodie.
the, yes, I love food so much. But it's just trying to find the restaurants who cook the way I cook, and then I can eat there.
You used to be a fixer, and you still are, but you used to focus on other people more than yourself, I feel like. And in my opinion, when you lost Adrian, especially, it almost like reset something in your brain. And yes, you still care about others and you've always cared for yourself. But I feel like there's been a huge shift, and I can see that you're ready to heal inside out. And it's been really neat to watch because it's something that's so foreign to me, even though I'm starting a little bit too. But yours is so blatantly obvious that it's honestly truly inspiring. I need to eat more fruits and vegetables, damn it.
Yeah, you do. They're good for you.
I'm working on it. I had a persimmon the other day and a golden kiwi.
Persimmons have that weird texture, right? They're like,
Mm,
make your
oh
mouth
my
like
goodness.
chalky,
Do th-
right?
mm, really? I
I
haven't
think
noticed
so.
that. They're so sweet. I have one on the counter. I might eat it.
They're like, they look like tomatoes, but they're not, right?
Yeah. Maybe yours
Yeah,
weren't ripe.
the ones I've had were like chalky. Like the fruit wasn't chalky, but the texture it left in your mouth was chalky.
Mm.
I could feel it now.
I
Maybe
love
they weren't all the
persimmons.
way ripe. Huh?
I love persimmons. I wonder if that's what it is. Like it just wasn't all the way ripe.
Maybe.
Was
It
it
was
was it
the
crunchy, like hard, or was it kind of soft?
it's soft.
Hmm. I don't
Yeah.
know. Creepy. I like persimmons a lot.
They're good.
Preach. My nose is so itchy. I'm about to itch this shit on sandpaper.
Sing it, girl.
Okay, so now we're at a point. We took a quick break so I could stir my soup. Now we're at a point where sometimes these get long and we could do part 12, 14, 20, whatever we need it to be because it's my circus, and that's okay. It can be
And
crazy
I'm the
cuz
monkey.
that's life. Hey monkey.
You summarizing made me think of I have people summarize me losing Adrian for me before I meet them
Hmm.
because I hate talking about that section of it. I could talk about the rest. I love talking about him. I will for always talk about him. I got memories of the yin yang about him, random sayings, random knowledges he has. All of that, I love talking about it. I could talk about what happened. I could talk about all the other things, but that little square, I hate talking about. So I ask people, like my boyfriend is a big one, meeting his family, right? They're going to have questions of, do you have children? She does. Where is the kid, right? So I have him, hey, I have asked him, hey, before I meet people, can you tell them? That way, when I tell them, I'm not ruining their Christmas day because now they're crying and can't focus because I told them, and the emotional exchange there is way greater than if it is when I have a messenger do it for me. And he was able to actually see that happen in real life with his best friend because we went to Portland, go see his best friend for his birthday. We spent like 3 or 4 days there. And I asked him, did you tell him? He goes, nah, he won't ask. And I'm like, okay. Everybody asks. It's natural. So 3 days into the trip, his friend, was drinking all night 'cause it's his birthday. He went all out for his birthday, had this great production and all that stuff. And we were just talking about life, right? And it just kept inching closer because I can't verbatim remember what was said, but he kept like, um, well, what are you doing in this part of your life? And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm just changing my life because like my life has changed. My life changing, he just couldn't get off of that subject. So he's like, how'd your life change? And I'm like, well, this is what happened. And then he, for the next like 30 minutes, was really fucking upset. So we then are consoling this man for my sadness because he's just fucking heartbroken. I'm cussing, I'm sorry. Um so then Kyle was able to see in person of like, this is why you ask and I will do a lot better. I was like, thank you.
Well,
Because that part's really hard.
yeah, and just from like my experience, I wouldn't know what to say. Like if I never met you, that was my first time meeting you. There's a little bit of booze in me. I wouldn't know what to do for like a solid hour probably. I wouldn't know how to act around you. I would be worried about stepping on toes or like saying something I shouldn't. Like, do I get extra sad? Do I try to keep it together? Like, that is a hard topic, but you're right. People ask all the time. And just like my mom, people ask my mom, oh, so like, do you have kids? Like, what do they do? How old are they? And my mom's like, don't, don't ask me about my kids. My daughter's great. Like, she struggles with it. So I could only imagine those situations. It's
Yeah, because I
crazy.
only have one kid. So I don't have another kid to defer to, which I think at times can be easier because it's an escape route. I have Haley, she's great, she does hair, or she's a 911 person. Whatever at the time of you're doing, there's like an escape sometimes. So I don't have an escape. So
Right.
it's just a little weird. So yeah, he definitely learned to help me in that aspect of telling people for me because just that initial, it's really rough, especially if they have had a close death recently. And just death is different when it's about a child and not an adult or a grandpa. Like your grandpa dies, you're like, oh, what happened? They were like, oh, they had cancer. And you're like, oh, okay, that's sad. But they were 80. A 12-year-old, they're like, what? They don't know how to accept it.
It is harder when somebody's younger because you think of like a kid as like young and innocent and growing up and like learning about the world in general or learning about themselves. And then you kind of go back to you and you're like, okay, well, what was I doing when I was 12? How was I feeling? Did I have similar thoughts? Did I go through similar things? Like, could something have been different for him? So I feel like kids are a whole different ball game, really.
Yeah, it hits home differently for literally everybody. But you had mentioned my light earlier before we took a break. And then I started saying, and this is why we started record. I was born dead. I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and then I was stuck in my mom's hips for I don't know how long because her hips were like not even. She shouldn't have gave vaginal births, but they did anyway because that was before time. So I was dead for 5-10 minutes, roughly around that time. And I feel like my light, as Haley said, has always just been naturally bright. And it doesn't matter what has happened in my life, what situation, I guess that's the same thing. I just always have this like, I'm thankful to be here. And that's every single day. Like I wake up every day, I say thank you. And it's just that's just how I naturally feel. And it doesn't matter how sad or mad or whatever I'm feeling, that still overshines whatever does happen in my life. And there are some people who that have died as an adult and it completely changes their life. They become a hardcore religious, they become, hardcore clean in their eating habits or whatever it is, they just change and they have this like light about them, I guess. Um, so I feel like I just have kind of always naturally had that, even though I don't remember what happened because I was 0 days old, so
Right.
it was
And
minutes.
she she said I was like born dead, and I was like, or something about being dead, and I said, do we need to have a conversation? Are you okay? Should I be worried about you? And then she went into this, and I was like, okay, I feel better, because I was like, I'm not prepared. I don't know that I'm emotionally available enough to have this kind of conversation with you right now, but if I need to be concerned, I will be concerned. Dang it.
Yeah, no, it
Oh,
was I was boring. I had no control. So I was really ugly when I was a baby. I was black, blue, and I was all the colors when I first came out because
and
no
that's why you're
oxygen.
so extra beautiful now.
And it's beautiful that I don't have any of those restrictions from not having oxygen to my brain. You know, there's a big part where I shouldn't be able to live by myself. I shouldn't be able to have done sports or to cook or to be able to drive, or there's just so many things that I am able to do even though I didn't have oxygen for so long. I'm like perfectly fine. Sometimes I can't really talk very well, but I don't know if it's from that.
Is that where the like emptiness comes from, you think?
Maybe
I think you're
just
perfect.
air.
I think you're freaking so smart. And with all the stuff that you've gone through in life, I think you have an incredible heart. And maybe that is that light from, the very beginnings of days for you. And I think the whole world is lucky that you have that light, because not very many people do. I'm friendly. I don't have that light. That light's not there, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it is a different. Yeah, there's just something different about people that have died and are still here. I think I'm also diving into nutrition more because it is a way for me to hide because work is difficult. But then also, I will be able to help people at the same time.
I think there's so many worse things that you could dive into, or obsess is not the right word, but that's the only word I can think of. Obsess over or let consume you. So I feel like that's a very, very, very healthy outlet.
Yeah, I could be doing heroin, you know?
Could be an alcoholic, you could be into
A lot of
things.
things.
I
A
don't know.
lot of things. And I'm not unhealthy about being healthy either, because you can be obsessed with things where it's not healthy, right? There are some days where I'm not on my course at all. Like I went to California for a few days to visit family, and I brought my computer so I could do the course, but I didn't open it once while I was there. I was just simply enjoying the time with my family.
Well, and I think that's just part of life in general, right? It's about balance, intake, outtake. You It's not healthy always to always be on. Like it's okay to pause things, and that's what I say in my intro every single time of one of these podcasts. Like I understand that some of these topics are hard, and maybe one specific line in hours and hours of talking is too much for you, and it's okay to stop or pause. And I say that all the time because it is so important. I mean, I paused doing episodes for weeks and weeks because it just was becoming too much, and I wasn't enjoying it, right? But that's with anything, you know.
And just learning, I'm learning to see people as people instead of this is my world, right? Like when I get in my car to go to work, I am getting in my car and going into the world. Everybody else is outside. So I have to understand everybody's also going to work or the grocery store or to the hospital or to their friend's house or coming home from the bar and they're drunk. You're going out into the world. The world is not around you. So that is definitely making me slow down a little bit in life. I don't have road rage anymore. If somebody's being crazy on the road, I just figure out how I can avoid them.
I've had some like super negative interactions, and I'm sure you have too, and so have people listening. And until like losing Jason, I never thought to be like, I wonder what happened in their life. Like, why are they driving so fast? Did they just lose somebody? Did they just get in like a domestic argument and are trying to get away? Did they just lose their job? Are they, struggling mentally and on autopilot and don't even realize that they're driving faster? There's always something. Like, sure, there's just genuinely mean people. That's life. It's
But
going to happen.
something happened to make
Right.
them mean.
Exactly. And you don't know what somebody's going through. And I think my job that I'm in was a big eye opening thing because we only hear the bad, right? Nobody ever calls just to say, hey, we think you guys are great. You're doing a great job. Life is great. But also, I had very low tolerance because I've been through some pretty shitty things in life and I have stayed nice. Like, it's not, in my opinion, it's not hard, but my heart is not everybody's hard. So, a little tangent, sorry, but popped into my brain, so I felt like I needed to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And your 911 job actually helped me because I was able to call you and I didn't know who to call.
Well, that's reassuring. I hope
Yeah.
that when you called I was helpful.
Oh, you were. I don't really remember a conversation, but I know it did help.
Well, I don't blame you, but
Hmm.
hopefully I was calm, cool and collected for you even though internally I was probably freaking out because I love you and
Because
your
you know me,
family
yeah.
and Adrian's also family.
Yeah, because the people that call you were strangers. When I called you, it was
Exactly.
not a stranger and it was to your cell phone. It wasn't 911. So,
It's probably better that it was to my cell phone.
yeah, it was. And
Oh.
thankfully you were at work because you were up because it was like 2 a.m.
Oh, it was perfect.
But the second time I called 911, do you think I would be able to listen to my 911 call?
You
Like if
can
I called
grandma
them and asked
request
them?
it. You can grandma request it. You just have to call and see if you can get the recording of your call. I think you just have to
Because I'm
request it through
interested.
records.
Because I'm interested on why the man, I think it was a man, I don't remember, why they make me take him down.
So typically they have you what they want you to do if you can. Now, when I worked in Utah, we didn't push it, but typically they ask you to take them down and not remove the knot because if they end up passing, obviously the detectives need to see, how it happened and what they used and how it was tied and stuff. But they have you take them down to do CPR. In Utah, I had a call and I can't remember exactly what it is. I remember, but I can't say. Um it was younger male who had passed. Very obvious. Like when I say obvious, maybe it's not obvious to everybody, but um there was no like there's no warmth, I'll just say, for like even then I asked the person who called, I said, hey, do you want to do CPR? Do you want to try CPR? And certain things you do to try to keep the caller busy, to keep them safe and calm. So, for example, another example, I had somebody call recently out here in South Carolina, and I started talking about their dog. I was like, tell me about your dog. Like, what color's your dog? And the person I was talking to was like very clearly hyperventilating, very upset, just went through something super traumatic. And they were like, my dog's white. And I said, oh, like pure white? And they said, yeah, there's like no brown, no nothing. And I'm like, that is so rare. And the person was like, yeah, it's super rare. And you could just hear he was like still breathing heavy. And I was like, what's your dog's name? And he told me, and I was like, okay, like I like that name. What kind of dog is it? He told me, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a super cute dog. What a cute name. And then, like, you just hear the, and then I could hear my coworkers. They were like, why is she asking what she's talking about a dog? And it's like you don't understand when somebody's mind is like spinning and spinning and spinning, it's not safe for them to be in that situation. You know what I mean? Because your body goes into that like fight or flight. So even though you have a level head and you had an experience 6 months prior to finding Adrian this second time, that doesn't mean that because you found him this time and you knew it was very obvious that you weren't going to go into like fix it, figure out how to change it mode. Like there's so many possibilities. Granted, every agency's policy and procedures are very different. You just want to try to keep the caller on the call talking to you because that's how you know they're going to be safe and how you know what's going on scene. Cutting down typically is just for resuscitation purposes. We did our job by saying, hey, let's try to do CPR. That takes liability off, right? But it also gives you a task to keep your mind busy and then also lets us know, oh, okay, very obvious that they're passed. Let me let my officers in EMS know that are going code 3 lights and sirens blowing through intersections that they can probably step it down because it's not critical, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I just wonder why. Because I knew it's not the first dead body I've been
Right.
around. It's not the first dead body I've touched either. So it's like I know when you can save someone, and I know
Mm-hmm.
when you just can't.
Right.
And I knew touching him before I called 911 that there was no, otherwise I wouldn't have called 911 at that time because my phone was far away.
Right.
I would have resuscitated him first and then called 911 because my
Right.
phone was just so far. And the first time when I was resuscitating him, I couldn't even figure out how to open my phone. So I just worked on him, you know.
Right.
Um
And that's the
yeah,
thing
so
too
it was
is
just
like
interesting.
we're not on scene with you. We're not there. We can't see what you're telling us could be completely different than what the actual situation is. So we just have to use our judgment and what we're taught and go through our again policies and procedures. That's like a the worst word ever to hear is it's against policy, but you know
But it's
policies
true.
are in place to keep you safe, keep us safe, keep the victim
Structure.
safe. So it's hard. I probably would have asked you. I would have been like, "Okay, I understand the situation. Do you feel comfortable getting him down? Do you think that there's do you think we could save him?" Basically. Like, do you think that he's beyond help? I think is one of our specific worded sayings is
Yeah.
literally, "Do you believe he's beyond help?" And if you said, "Yes, he's cold. He's probably been here for a couple hours," I would have said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your phone with you, walk out of whatever room you're in. I want you to shut the door and sit in your living room. We have officers and EMS on the way. As soon as they get there, I just want you to let them in and let me know, and I'll let you go, okay? And then I would have kept you busy. I would have said, okay, what are you doing now? Are you sitting in the living room? Let me know when you've done this. Okay, you did this. Perfect. Is your front door unlocked? Awesome. Love that your front door is unlocked. They're almost to you, okay? And then when they get there, I'm right before they get there, I'd say, okay, I've been told they're pulling up. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to come in. They're going to walk past you and go straight to the room. Just tell them where to go. They're going to go in, do what they need to do, and then they'll come talk to you. But it's those little things. Like your brain's not going to remember that. They're going to get there and you're going to be like all over again. Oh shit, what am I supposed to do? What are they doing? I need to go in there. But hopefully something sticks and you're like, okay, she told me to just wait. They're going to go and do their thing. Everything's fine.
Yeah, that's why I want to listen back to be like, what did I
Mm,
say that made him or her believe
yeah,
I that there was hope? Because I knew there wasn't. Because like my grandpa was dead in my house. I found him, so it's like even him. Soon as I like touched him, I knew that's it. There's no. I'm not doing CPR because it's pointless.
right.
Just wondering why they made me take him down. But it could have
Well,
been absolutely something I said. I
yeah,
could have not said, "Hey, it's like done."
Well, and it's like, and I talked about it a tiny bit on other episodes, but like with my dad, when I called 911, she was like, walk up the street, go to some house outside and see if somebody will go see if they can do CPR. And I was like,
Yeah,
no, no, you want me to ruin somebody else's life to come see? So I was like, my dad's meticulous. And I remember
yeah,
vividly, I'm like, no. Like he's meticulous. If this is what he said he did, he did. And
he did
he
it.
made sure that there was no chance. I'm like, he's a retired fireman. He's this no. But because she kept insisting, I did.
I get the CPR part, but at the end of the day, it's like where does the line fall between starting CPR
Hmm.
and just being more traumatic than this already is?
Yeah. As shitty as it is, that does fall back on liability because there's been times where people are like, oh no, it's like very obvious, like this person is passed. And officers and EMS get there and they do CPR and the person lives. And it's like, okay, well, liability, we should have instructed you to do something, you know? Every situation's
Yeah.
so different, and everybody's perception in that moment when your brain is shutting down is also very different.
Yeah.
Because I've had a CPR call in Utah where somebody was like, oh, yeah, he's breathing. And I'm like, okay, but like, is he? And they're like, yes, I can hear him. And I'm like, can you put the phone by like his mouth? And then all you hear is like a snoring sound. And I'm like, okay, here's what I need you to do. I need you to put your phone on speaker. I need you to kneel next to your husband. I want you to put your phone down next to you and we're going to start CPR.
Yep.
And they're like, no, he's breathing. And I said, that's agonal breathing. He's dying. I need you to do CPR with me. But
Yep.
like, it just doesn't click in that moment because you want everything to be okay. So that could also be something like you may, and I'm not saying you weren't because you're very level headed and that wasn't your first call for a similar type of situation, although this one was more traumatic. You could have, and I don't want to say you could have, but I'm going to just for purposes of this hypothesis, hypothetical moment. You could have implied that maybe there was something that could have been done. You could have very obviously been like, nah, there's nothing. I know. Done this before. Know it's happening. Seen something like this before. And it could have just been them following policy, whatever their policy is. So there's tons of factors, you know,
Hmm.
for that specific situation.
Yeah. Which is why I think if I listen back, I'll be able to hear why. Or the guy was just like, hey, we're going to try it anyway, even though you said what you said. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't believe you because of, the
Yeah.
last time somebody called me, they were actually savable. So, like you had said in your podcast before this one, your dad, you guys were camping or something and someone's like, "Tell us a story, tell us a story." And your dad's like, "Have you seen anybody dead?" And they're like, "No." So he's like, "Okay, well then I'm not going to tell you stories." Most people haven't seen dead people, so when it does happen, it's just different. I am starting to view death differently now because it is a cycle of life. Everybody dies. That is the only guarantee in life of once you're born is you will die. Whether you're a plant, whether you're an animal, whether you're a doesn't matter what you are, you're gonna die one day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just pray that people let God choose when that is instead of yourself. But being around dead people is different for me now because I've been around like enough dead people that. But I am able to like see Adrian everywhere around me, right? Sometimes he's like a bird. Sometimes he's whatever it is in the day of, and it makes me happy. So, or sometimes when I'm at home, I genuinely feel like he's here. I feel like he's just being quiet in his room or being quiet because he was a pretty quiet kid too. So, I just feel like he's home sometimes, or just like in the
Yeah.
back seat of my car, chilling, or in the front seat, I guess. And sometimes I'll even turn on the heater on the other side of my car, like he is there, even though it's just air or my purse. But I still do it.
Yeah. Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just part of life and how you're coping and how you're moving forward for sure.
Mhm.
What's interesting to me is how losing somebody and like survived by loss, and just like working through life in general, like how much one loss can affect you and change the entire course of your life. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I just, I
And
lose
games.
totally. I lose socks and it's life altering sometimes. Or, you know, I lose like a shirt that I really like. But thinking about how losing something has brought me to South Carolina. Are you freaking kidding me? I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, if I had never lost Jay, what would life be like right now? Like, what would Jason and my relationship be like? What would my relationship with my dad be like? What would my parents' relationship be like? I feel like losing Jason kind of snowballed, uh, just the spiral. Just everything spiraled when we lost Jay. So it's different. It's very interesting.
Hmm.
I have
And
all the
gains
thoughts.
in life too. You've
Mm-hmm.
gained a lot of friends. We gain a lot of friends. You know, we gain new cars. We gain new places we live.
Mm-hmm.
People gain children, or you gain a dog. I think we have to lose and gain through life. There has to be good and bad, or we don't know what good or bad is. Planet is very healing. The water, the salt, the plants, the cactuses, the oxygen that plants give off. So yeah, I'm just learning to then use those internally so I can be whole and healthy just as long as I'm supposed to be here for.
But it feels like normal. So when you really stop and think about it and how incredible it is, it's hard to fathom.
I've been watching Animal Planet a little bit more and different because I used to watch it for Adrian for all his fun facts and stuff and just like looking
Yeah.
at the species and learning what each species does. But now when I'm watching Animal Planet, I'm looking at their travel or their migration. Animals and humans, we migrate, and that is what keeps our ecosystem going. And our water has its own migration it does to keep the salt levels and the freshwater levels. It's a whole perfect cycle. It's a little mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm just kind of cool just watching the fluctuations of fish being born and then them dying throughout the year, but then that big rush just feeds so many animals in one section that normally aren't there. And then the coral rebuilds, and it's just some fish poop sand.
Hmm.
Did you know that?
No.
Some fish, it's probably one type, they poop sand,
Oh.
which then helps other fish and stuff. And then there's some fish that are doctors for stingrays or something, I believe. So the stingrays literally come in and they go, "Hey, I need help." And these little fishes that go eat off all their little infectious stuff growing, and
That's
then
crazy.
the other stingrays. I'm not sure if it's stingrays, so don't quote me on that. They will have other stingrays watching this stingray getting medicated so the sharks and stuff don't eat it, and then they just switch off. So this one will then become a guardian and this one will come in and get treated.
That is so crazy.
Isn't that so beautiful?
We love Dr. Fish.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
a whole
wild. I didn't know
ecosystem
that.
of itself. Yeah.
I love it. I love
God.
that our conversations always go on like the most wild tangents ever. We always talk about the most random stuff, but it always is so wholesome.
Hmm.
Wholesome stingrays, growly koalas, we're here for it. Um I feel like if I don't kind of wrap this up, we'll talk for like 500 hours. Not that that's a bad thing, but also I want to be able to like, this will probably be a two-parter. Surprise, two parts, one part, two part, maybe three, depending on the length of how editing goes. But um, one, I want to thank you for always being courageous and willing to go on this podcast journey with me. Even with the recent loss of Adrian, I think it's very brave. And even if it doesn't feel brave, talking about loss in general, any kind, is not easy. And working through it and growing and healing and being in the middle of it and being willing to talk about it is amazing because we get to see your progress as it's happening, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
16 years later that you lost Adrian. It's not even a year. And we get to see your light and we get to see it get brighter and we get to listen and now watch because this will be an actual video, but people will be able to watch things progress, which I think is really neat. Um, yeah, and I just think you're amazing, and I'm so thankful that we're friends. And I hope you know that in the times that we don't talk, because I'm a slacker, that I literally love you more than life, and I think you're incredible, and you deserve to be happy beyond your wildest beliefs. And you are so incredibly strong and amazing, and the world is lucky to have you. I'm lucky.
I will say I have learned that my community is way bigger than I could have ever imagined
Mm-hmm.
or saw before this. And I'm also learning that I've kind of always known the distance between talking with your friends isn't a bad thing, and it's just because you're focusing on you and I'm focusing on myself and or whatever else close knit things I need to focus on at that time. So a lot of people I've learned are telling me, "Hey, sorry I wasn't at his celebration of life." And I'm like, "Well, don't be sorry. Who was there, and who wasn't."
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me. It doesn't matter if you were in the hospital or not in the hospital or at work or not at work. You were just watching TV at your house. It doesn't bother me because I know that everybody in my life does love me. And I love you guys very much.
I feel like everybody has, and I said it a couple times in the last couple hours of us talking, but like, do you have the mental and emotional capacity to talk about it? Do you need a break? Do you feel like you're okay? Because everybody has a different level of okay. Everybody has, oh, a little tail. Everybody has like a battery, a social battery, right? And everybody recharges in different ways and it takes different amounts of times. And I think what is amazing about your friendship with people is that understanding. Like, you know what? You couldn't make it to the celebration. That's okay, because I bet in the future, on a day where I need a reminder that I have community, you're going to reach out. Maybe I'll get a text, maybe I'll get a call, maybe we'll run into each other and you'll say, "Hey, I'm so sorry I've been distant. How are you? Tell me everything." Everybody's purpose and your journey of healing is different, right? Everybody's role is big or small. Everybody's a season. I remember talking to Rachel when it first happened, and she was like, "Well, have you been talking to her? Like, have you been checking on her?" And I said, "You know what? I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't think I can. I spent that time up front with you, and that was such a blessing. And even then I was still working through stuff with me. But just being what I could when I can is all I have, and I know you understand that, right? I'm fortunate that you understand it because it's hard. I don't like showing up for myself 90% of the time. So being able to show up for you because I love you and I want to be what I can when I can, I love that you can appreciate that and understand. But you are deserving of your community, I'll tell you that. You have been people's soul community. And I don't mean soul like soul, but like singular, wholesome community many times in life. And you have been my community more times than I could probably tell you, or more times than I probably even realize. So when I can, I want to be better for you because you deserve it and you need it. And you're amazing and you need that reminder. So thank you for being patient with me because we all be learning, right?
Hmm. And thank you for being patient with me too, because I mean, I don't text you every day either.
I feel like it's important to note too, like respond when you can, not even just like when you have time or when you're taking a break from doing something, but if responding when you can is 3 weeks from then, when you emotionally can focus enough to say a 3-word response, like, I hope everybody knows that sometimes that's people's capacity. And you have
Hmm.
to be okay with that, and you have to respect that, and you have to love them for it, because there's going to be a day, and I hope that there never is, but there will probably be a day at some point in your life where that is your capacity, and you're going to need somebody to be patient with you too, and understand that that's okay, and it's not a
Hmm.
negative, and you don't hate them, and it's not that you don't want to talk to them. It's just that is all you have to give, and that's fine.
And then just learning to not take things personal, right? If somebody doesn't text you back when they said, "How are you doing?" it doesn't mean they hate you or they don't like you or whatever it is. You have to take yourself out of everybody else's actions.
There's so many things that come like full circle when people just have genuine conversations like this. And
Hmm.
that's one reason why I really wanted to start the podcast in general, but also have people like you, somebody who's level headed, even tempered, has had some tremendous freaking loss in their life, but is doing so many cool and amazing things with their life in spite of, not in spite of, I don't know what word I'm trying to think of. Like, you've lost all this, but you're still being incredible. And
Some
because of people
gaining.
like you, the world still spins. It's easy to be
Absolutely.
sad, but it's inspiring.
I do really enjoy our talks too. I always have, which is why I think we just connected. As soon as we went on that road trip, you were just stuck with me forever. You didn't have a choice.
No, I agree. It was a
Yeah.
done deal for shizzle.
Hmm.
Can't. I'm trying to have a lovely moment, and she's just getting buck wild. I don't blame her. We've been inside for 7, 8, 9 hours. I don't know, too long. You're amazing, like, in all the ways. And I think you're incredibly wise, and your story and your growth and your desire to be better and healthier, and not better in like a vain way, but literally just heal yourself, is going to be inspiring to a lot of people, not just me. So I'm super excited.
Yours too. You're very inspiring to people too, whether you see it or feel it. It's there.
Just kidding. Thank you. I'm learning to take
Yeah.
compliments.
Because everybody who is on this podcast, you inspire them some way to be talking to you,
You right. You
just
and
so
my
you
mom.
know. Uh
Just
huh.
kidding.
And all the other people.
There will
And
be
then all the
people
other
coming.
people that listen.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. All right. I feel like, I'm sorry, guys. This squeaking is not going to stop. There's
It's not.
nothing I can do about it. I have to
She needs
go.
to just
Chanel,
be a dog mom.
we will we'll come back to this, okay? I
We
got to
will.
save my dog. She thinks I'm neglecting her. She's ready for the club. I think she's addicted. We got to go. Long story short, Chanel's amazing. And if you want to be her friend or part of her community, you should, because there are some really incredible things coming. I don't know what that is, because I can't see the future. However, based on her past and her present, she's amazing in general. So anything that's coming in the future is going to be wonderful. So if you want to be her friend, you should. Even if she doesn't want you to be, I'm telling you, you should be, because she's great. And I appreciate you listening to me rambling. And Chanel, I appreciate you being my friend and loving me through the good and bad, the big and small, the bad and the ugly, and the beautiful and the butterflies, and the sad and the sad, and all the things, because not everybody is as lucky as me to have somebody like you. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Lots of gut healing in the future for those wondering.
Yeah, I'm freaking ready. I need it. My gut is
I will
pissed.
I will be talking to you, don't worry.
Good. Well, everybody listening and now watching, so fun. Everybody listening and watching, thanks for being part of our um wonderfully long conversation today. I could talk to Chanel for 4 days straight, and I don't think I'd ever get bored.
No.
However, naughty dog back here is wagging her tail because she knows I'm talking about her. So I have to go not neglect her, but we will be back soon. I know that for sure.
Absolutely.
I love you so much. You right there, little cutie pants. And I love everybody listening. And yeah, talk to you guys really soon. Okay, love you. Bye.
We love you. Bye.
Bye.